As Germany prepares for federal elections next month, there's one party gaining momentum: Alternative for Germany. It's a far-right movement led by Alice Weidel, who has been endorsed by Elon Musk. Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, German politician Alice Weidel is becoming internationally very well known thanks to support from Elon Musk. Her party, the AfD, has seen a surge in popularity and is currently second in the polls with an election just over a month away. So, who is she and why is her party gaining traction in Germany?
She's been officially approved as the AfD's candidate for Germany's upcoming election. A move which thousands of protesters attempted to disrupt. Alice Weidel has seen a surge in popularity in Germany, with her name now known internationally thanks to the world's richest man. Last week, the pair live-streamed a 70-minute conversation on X, viewed by millions. A prominent moment was her response to a question about the media linking AfD to Nazism.
The biggest success after that terrible era in our history was to label Adolf Hitler as right and conservative. He was exactly the opposite. He wasn't a conservative. He wasn't a libertarian. He was a communist, socialist guy. So, full stop, no more comment on that.
Musk has been forthright in endorsing the AfD, but his tactics, including live streaming its conference and the X conversation, has been monitored by the European Commission for election interference and a possible breach of digital rules.
If you are unhappy with the situation, you must vote for change, and that is why I'm really strongly recommending that people vote for AfD.
Alice Weidel isn't like many other far-right leaders. She holds a degree in economics, lived in China, and speaks fluent Mandarin. She also lives openly with her female partner and their 2 children, a profile that stands in stark contrast to the traditional image of nationalist leaders. But her politics tells a different story.
Close the borders completely and turn back anyone entering the country illegally and without papers. And a very clear message to the whole world: the German borders are closed.
Weidel and the AfD push hardline immigration policies, Euroscepticism, and a critique of the country's political establishment. As well as Musk, the party also wants to build closer ties with the US, seeing Trump as an ideological ally. Their message is resonating with voters fed up with migration and energy policies. But will Musk's online support and global spotlight help Alice and her party secure more votes? Or will it backfire?
Well, let's meet our guests. In Berlin, we have Peter Kuras, who is a German journalist, and John Kampfner. He's the author and senior associate fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. And in Bavaria, in southern Germany, we have Ursula Munch. She's director of the Academy for Political and Civil Education in Tutzing. You're all very welcome to Roundtable. Ursula, I'll come to you first. I'm absolutely fascinated to hear what German people think of Elon Musk suddenly developing an interest in your politics. What is this all about?
It's always depending who you ask. So there are some people who are quite in favor of this type of the way of influencing, trying to influence German politics. And of course, we have a federal election in middle of February. And of course, we know that this is the main reason why he is so interested in German politics. So there are some people who are quite fond of it. These are especially people very close to the AfD, and the rest. So in my friends and colleagues, so we are quite ambivalent, or at least we are not very in favor of it, because of course it makes an indifference. Everybody has, of course, the right to to comment on German politics, but he is not everybody. He is the man, the most rich man in the world, and he has, of course, a very important digital platform. So it does make a difference whether he is trying to intervene or not. So that's very important. And we have last week, we had a lot of discussions about this so-called talk between these both people.
And Peter, to you, Alice Weidel's views, her opinions, her policies, and indeed her profile, they've got extraordinary exposure because of this interest from Elon Musk.
That's right. And I mean, I'm not sure that it's good that that's the case. I mean, I think in many ways what she's revealed as this exposure has become more global and become more intense even within Germany is how unprepared she is to handle the kind of political roles that she seeks. I think we saw, particularly in her interview on X, that she has a really remedial understanding of German history, that she has an understanding of German history or of history as a total that doesn't really seem to reflect, any kind of broad consensus with which Western coalition can govern. So my feeling is that in some sense, if there's a silver lining to Musk's interest in Germany, it's to really reveal exactly how shallow the AfD is as a party.
John, that's a very interesting point Peter's brought up, that by shining this huge light on the AfD and Weidel, Musk has really shown up, Peter feels, her remedial understanding of German history.
Well, I agree with Peter's analysis about it showed how shallow she was. Some of the stuff was extraordinary, that Hitler was a terrible man because he was a communist and he tried to nationalize industry and that kind of thing. It was a performance, as Peter says, of somebody who really doesn't know her stuff. However, I wouldn't be nearly as sanguine as he is, to the following extent, that whether it's Germany, whether it's the United States, whether it's Britain, France, or wherever, what had previously been seen to be kind of rationalism, the idea that you look at a politician and you think he or she knows their stuff, they're convincing, or they're not, and therefore you put your ballot according to the person that you think is the most fit person to govern. That kind of calculation seems, over the last several years, certainly since 2016, whichever country you happen to be in, that's gone out the window. So the AfD, the party that Weidel leads, and it was an incredibly sort of weird and psychedelic discussion they had, and I listened through at the time live to all of it. But their polling, which started when the election campaign was kicked off by Scholz at just under 20%, has edged forward, according to the polls, to the early 20%. And the fear I have is that the hugely reliable German opinion polls might just be understating the AfD's support. And if it gets to the mid-20%, and if the lead of the mainstream Conservative Party gets eroded further, then we are in even more dangerous territory than we already are in.
Just come in on that, Ursula. Do you agree with John that Germany is in a very dangerous position at the moment, with Weidel gaining in popularity and gaining all of this exposure for free?
Yes, of course, she has gained, or the AfD has gained a lot of support in the last month. That's true. I'm not so pessimistic with regard to the upcoming federal elections in Germany. But of course, we have a big discussion in Germany about the federal elections after the coming ones, in 4 years, because we have now the narrative and the rhetoric that people saying, so as in the case that the next federal government is not a successful government, then this might be the chance for a very high popular support for the AfD. But of course, that's also a dangerous way of telling a history or a story, because people now in Germany, we always hear that it is necessary to change everything, that we need the very big solution. And of course, we will not have that such a big solution, new politics in Germany, because we are a quite slow political system. We have a lot of checks and balances in our system, so we will not see this really the many big changes we perhaps really would need. So I think the problem will be really that we have a lot of ideas what is necessary now, and the people, they hear these stories, they hear the position that these changes are necessary. They have a very high way of thinking about the next government, that what they have to do, and they will of course not be able to do everything, to change everything. So there will be a lot of disappointment, and then might be a big chance for the AfD to really become so great after the next after this upcoming election, in the next election, that they might be able to really to govern in Germany, but not with the next election. I'm not so pessimistic, but nevertheless, it's a dangerous time because of all these attempts to influence via digital media.
So, Peter, what are the policies of Alice Weidel that are really kind of resonating with the German public right now?
You know, I think it's really difficult to answer the question when you put it that way. I'm not sure that there are policies either from Weidel specifically or from the AfD more broadly that are resonating with the German populace. You know, when you look at the actual policy platforms that they're trying to run on, they don't tend to have, you know, suggestions about how to solve problems with healthcare or solve problems with transportation. They don't seem to have any real idea of how to address, you know, the very real problems with the economy in Germany right now. You know, so the kinds of issues that voters care about in a concrete way, I don't think that the AfD or anyone else really has a very compelling sort of platform to address right now.
John,
I think their success is much more a result of their protest voters, of people who are frustrated with the incapacity of the main parties or of the traditional parties, the old parties they're called in German usually, to address these issues, and are looking for people who are making claims to have a solution, you know, which the AfD has for a long time and long before Weidel and done by claiming to, you know, find the cause of these problems in migration and in cultural difference.
So, John, we're seeing similarities here with a lot of these other populist far-right parties across Europe, where they don't have any great solutions or political policies, and a lot of it seems to be blaming others. The migrants are at fault for all the problems in our country. What do you think? And a lot of people, quarter of the percentage, if you believe these polls in Germany at the moment, seem to agree with the AfD.
Yeah, I mean, that is what is going on in Germany with the AfD. And there's another small group called BSW, which is a classic case of the horseshoe of the far left meeting the far right. And they're hovering around 4, 5, 6, 7% at the moment. And it's interesting to see whether they surmount the 5% hurdle and get into parliament. What is happening in Germany evokes in Germany and outside Germany, for obvious reasons, dating back to the war, a particular sensitivity. But there is nothing particularly German about any of this. You can literally put a pin in so many countries in Europe and around the world, starting with Donald Trump going to Brexit and the possibility or even probability that Nigel Farage might one day in the not too distant future become Prime Minister of Britain, Marine Le Pen in France, all the countries that are already going down that route. Hungary, Austria only 2 weeks ago, Slovakia, the Czech Republic's probably going to go that way, and Giorgia Meloni in Italy as well. This is a European and worldwide phenomenon. Political scientists and sociologists have been looking at why that is. Does it go back to the global financial crash of 2007? What it certainly does come down to is poor leadership among the mainstream parties. Germany has been ailing for 3 to 4 years under this hopeless traffic light three-party government under Olaf Scholz, who started well and presaged a much more robust approach to Ukraine and a much more confident Germany, and pretty much sort of collapsed into a heap. And the government that was been trundling along, and finally Scholz put it out of its own misery last November. And that is the problem everywhere. And in the UK, where you are, Keir Starmer has a huge majority. And in only 6 months or so, that government has also put itself under enormous amount of pressure by not performing well. So you've got this twin question of the populist parties who do the usual tropes around immigration, around woke so-called culture, etc. And you have underperformance by the mainstream parties, and it's everywhere.
So Ursula, just come in on Alice Weidel. I saw an interview recently where she referred to German people as a defeated people, and she seems to have a lot to say that is negative. How did German people feel hearing those words out of a senior political leader's mouth who is German, describing you as a defeated people? And slaves was another phrase that was used as well.
Once again, it depends who you ask. So the 80% of the Germans really are very unhappy with these remarks, with these analysis, because it isn't an analysis. Of course, we have a lot of problems with our infrastructure, also with the schools, and sometimes also with the universities, but they are not so big as Weidel tells people or tries to tell people. But 20%, 25% are quite fond of these ideas. So we have the problem that there are also normal politicians, democratic politicians, normal serious parties, the older parties. They are also talking a lot about the problems with infrastructure. We always hear the story that we have too much bureaucracy, that there is too much bureaucracy coming from the European Union, coming from the Commission. So there is always, there is at least a part of the storytelling of Alice Weidel is not so a lie as you might think. So there's a part of truth in it, but it's only a small part. So, but this small part of truth is the bridge to the normal, to the public in the middle of the political party line. So that's the problem, that we have people are traveling with the Deutsche Bahn, with the railway. We have 30 minutes delay, and then people sit there and say, typical Germany, there is nothing functioning. And they tell the story, the true story about the German railway system, about the Deutsche Bahn, but then they transfer this criticism with regard to German railway system, they transfer it to German politics. And we have the same rhetoric with regard to, for example, to clinics, to the German medical system. We have a very, very good medical system in comparison with nearly every other European country, or in comparison with the United States. But nevertheless, we have too many clinics. We have, and now we have this once again the story of the AfD telling the people that we don't have enough money for these clinics. We have a demographic problem, so they don't tell us this true story, and they say that's because we don't have enough money because we have too much money to spend on migration, on refugees. So we have always this way of trying to interpret some of the German problems, which are really problems. I don't want to deny this, but they are not as big as Alice Weidel tells us.
Peter, just talk to me about Alice Weidel, the person. I mean, when you look at her, she's not what you expect of a populist far-right leader. For a start, she's openly gay, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's... it's a hard issue for sure, and that's been a major selling point. It was a major feature of the op-ed that Musk very controversially penned, or maybe copied off an AI for Die Welt. We see, Jens Spahn, also from the CDU, was another very conservative, very gay politician openly. Volker Beck, who was played a really major role in legalizing gay marriage, and for a long time was, I think, the most visible politician, gay politician in Germany, has now taken on a very conservative role in trying to police speech about Palestine and Israel.
And John, I notice on social media, Weidel is a big user of the platforms, TikTok in particular. I mean, she's got a good social media game.
On social media, again, conforms to what is happening elsewhere. Parties that are these populist parties of the far right, predominantly, and to a smaller degree the far left, are far more adept at using social media tropes, algorithms, short videos. Mainstream political parties are catching up. But what is really interesting, there's been various opinion polls in all kinds of countries, not least in the UK, I was reading only a few days ago. In Spain, I was reading also recently, the number of votes that are coming from to the far right from the young, from Gen Zs in particular. So the old idea that the AfD is a party of the older, grumpy East German left behinds, to a degree that is still the case. But these parties are attracting the young through social media, and that is deeply dangerous.
Ursula, just give us your prediction what you think will happen at the end of February when Germany goes to the polls. Do you think the AfD will gain in support off the back of all of this exposure from Elon Musk?
Yes, I think so, because it's a wonderful platform for them. They had a lot of popularity, and there was a lot of talking about Weidel. And we had last week, we had on Saturday, Sunday and Saturday, we had the party convention of the AfD, and the rest of the public was very angry about some of the remarks of Alice Weidel. But on this party convention, they were very fond of her talking with Elon Musk. So that's interesting. And perhaps Sarah Wagenknecht from the already mentioned Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht BSW, perhaps she will have an advantage from this very pro-American position of Alice Weidel, because in Germany we have a lot of anti-Americanism also in the normal population. So perhaps we have a lot of them very fond of talking with Elon Musk, but there's also the reverse. There's also the attitude, why should we be interested in an American multimillionaire?
Peter, final point to you. Is she here to stay, or is this a flash in the pan popularity?
I'm far more concerned about the kinds of positions that we see coming out of the AfD and the kinds of resonance that they have in the middle of German society right now. Regardless of the results of the next election, which I am confident that the centrist parties will prevail. I think that we're seeing more and more that you have rhetoric from the AfD slipping into parties from the SPD to the FDP. Famously, Christian Lindner, briefly before this whole event with Musk and the AfD, made overtures on behalf of the center-right FDP, which has generally been economically liberal. So I think we're seeing, both in terms of this kind of overture to Musk and this kind of overture towards populism, certainly with regards to immigrants, refugees, we're seeing comments from the CDU and from the FDP and from the SPD that I think would have been unthinkable 5 years ago.
One last point to you, John, before we go. What's Elon Musk getting out of this?
You need to ask his shrink, I think. He's a very complicated man. He's meddling in the politics of the UK. He's meddling everywhere. He wants to be at Donald Trump's right hand. He seems to be so far. I'm not an expert on American politics, but the other wing of MAGA Steve Bannon and the people who were with Trump earlier are furious with Musk. I think we're going to see some classic medieval court battles before, during, and after Trump's inauguration. And we are going to have a helter-skelter ride in American politics. And Musk and all the others, we've seen that with the overtures on Greenland, they will be meddling wherever they can.
We will keep right across it. John, Ursula and Peter, thank you all so much, and we will speak to you again before that election, Sunday, February 23rd. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable, TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.